Good morning, YouTube, and welcome back to Fern Valley Farms YouTube channel. On this channel, we are pure country. Alrighty, this is kind of a winter tip. As you can see, it's about 7 o'clock in the morning. It's only about 15 degrees. One of my viewers actually commented on a video that I did last year, and I'm going to kind of redo this again. Some people don't realize, I even caught myself doing this a few times. This is something really basic and dumb, actually. But in the wintertime, you'll use your water, you'll use your hose. Don't leave, if you know it's going to get cold, disconnect your hose. I mean, and I know that's pretty much a basic, gee, really? But, we forget about it. You use your water, it's hooked up to your hydrant, and then you walk away and you forget about it. All of a sudden it gets cold. And you go to use your water, well, it's frozen because all the water, what happens is the water sits up here in the head because you left the hose on it. It drains down, but then it freezes up here. You can't get the hose off. But what can happen here is if your hydrant isn't working properly, the way these hydrants are designed, you turn them on, there's a valve. This one's down about 4.5 feet. And here again, it depends on where you live. Like where I live, up in northern Illinois, our water lines are a good 4.5, even 5 feet down. If somebody's got a backhoe and a machine that's digging it for you, put them down 5 feet. You're safe. Because you get a cold, cold winter with no snow, that frost line just drops. If you've got a lot of snow, the snow will insulate the ground and your frost line won't go as deep. But you get into January, you get 20, 30 below zero, or even 10 below, 20 below. Well, 30 below is kind of rare. We did have that last year. But you get 10 below with no snow, that frost line is just going to drop. If you get 10 below with 1.5 feet of snow, your frost line is not going to go as deep. But just to be safe, if you're putting in water lines, put them down at least 5 feet, up here anyways. Now, depending on where you live, that's a different story. If you're down south, where it's warm year-round, if you're really far south, where you don't get no freezing except for a day or so, you ain't going to hurt nothing. But like I said, I don't know what the codes are. I don't know what that's like down there. I just know what it's like up here and what could happen when it gets really freaking cold. Last year it was 30 below zero. Thank God my water came on. But my lines are down deep. So anyways, the moral of this story is, if you think about it, disconnect your hose. Because if not, like I said, it'll freeze up in your head. Now here's the other problem what could happen. If these hydrants aren't working properly, because these are, like I said, these are designed, they open up all the way down at the bottom. There's a valve. There's like a round valve, and a plunger goes into that. That's what shuts it off. Well, at the bottom of this valve, there's a little petcock thing where the water drains out. So when you shut the water off down, when you shut it off, it drains down. And if they're put in properly, like when I do it, I put gravel down at the bottom. So when I put these like this one was put in a couple years ago, I had to replace it. I actually set it on a brick, and I put gravel around it. So when you shut it off, it drains into the gravel, goes into the ground. You're good. You don't really want to put mud and dirt around it because that mud and dirt can clog up that little drain. So if you put one in, put gravel around it. I set mine on a brick, just an old piece of busted brick, or if you got a brick, set it down there, set the hydrant on it, pack it with gravel, and then go ahead and put your dirt around it. This way there's gravel around that drain valve and the water could drain. So anyways, the whole point of that, if that is not draining, if you shut that off and that water doesn't drain down, and you'll know this, even if your hose isn't connected, if you go turn your water on one day, if you go to turn your hydrant on one morning, and the handle won't even lift up and your hose was not connected, that means your pipe is frozen. Because what's happening is that water's not draining down at the bottom. When you shut it off, the water drains out completely. If you shut that off and that's not draining properly, that whole pipe is going to stay full of water. Now you're not going to know this until it gets this cold. If it's normal winter temperatures, you won't even if it's not cold, you're not going to notice it because there's water in the pipe. It's not freezing, so you just turn your water on. You think everything's just wonderful. Well, it gets cold. You'll come out one morning, you got to water your animals. No matter what kind of animals you got, they all need water. You go to turn your hydrant on, and the handle won't lift up. It's frozen. That means your valve's not draining all the way. Now you're pretty much screwed until it gets warm up and that thaws until spring. So now you're going to be bucketing water from the house. Gee, ask me how I know this, right? I always hate this. Ask me how I know stuff. You live and learn, right? They say, with age and wisdom, the older you get, the more you learn, the smarter you're supposed to get. And like I said, sometimes you don't even know it. You don't even know that that's not draining properly until it gets cold out. So if you have that issue, obviously in the spring, you might want to replace your hydrant. There you can buy the kits for these. This is kind of an inexpensive hydrant. There's better ones. There are kits that you can replace it and fix like the plunger and stuff, but you're better off if it's not draining. You got to dig it out. You can hand dig it, which I've done. So if it's not draining down, you're gonna have to take care of that in the spring. The other problem, I just lost my train of thought here. So if you go to use your water and you open, if you can't lift the valve, that means that pipe is frozen. You're pretty much done until it gets warm out. The other problem is, let me grab it. It's right here. All right, I actually did a video on this last year. A lot of times too, what could happen in the winter time. Oh, I know what I was going to say. You know, you go to use your water, you'll shut it off. Well, the top of this little ring here gets wet, obviously because of the water coming out. Well, then it freezes. When you go to lift your handle up, and it won't lift up. That doesn't mean your hydrant's frozen. That means it's just a little frozen right up on here. And the simplest way to fix that, I keep this little handy torch. You buy these tanks are cheap. You can buy the head one time. And then when your propane runs out, you just buy another tank and screw the head on and go. So if you come out to water your animals, well, it's really hard to lift up. Don't yank and pull it up hard, because what happens here, let me move this camera in and show you. All right, what happens here is this little piece right here where the rod goes down there, this freezes just because there's water. When you turn the water on, the water comes up and it freezes. My dog wants to get in the video. And it just gets tight. You just take your torch, just warm it up, it pops right open. If you go to force this, if you go to really crank and force this valve open, what's going to happen is you might pull that pipe out of alignment, because there's a little, on this hydrant, this one's a little bit different. Oh, there's a tightening knob on the top of this thing to adjust this thing. So when you turn your water on and you shut it off, it pushes the plunger all the way down to the bottom, shuts your water off. Well, if you force this valve, if you force that up and lift it, if you just kind of and just crank it really hard, you know what I'm talking about. You got animals, you got a farm, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You go to force that up, you might pull that out of alignment, or you might pull this off that pipe just a little bit. Now when you go to shut that off, it's not shutting off at the bottom all the way. And then your water's going to be running, and you're going to have water underneath the ground, and eventually that's all going to freeze. So don't force that up. It's just a little tip. Let me back up here. Just a little tip. Don't force that up. You'll pull that screw out of adjustment, and you won't even know it. But you might hear. And actually, let me rephrase that. You will know it. You go to lift that up. If you go to force it up, your water comes out. You're filling buckets. You got a hose, whatever. You go to shut it off. You got water coming out still. If there's water coming out still, that means your valve didn't shut off at the bottom. Now you got to run and get a pair of pliers. I'm loosening this nut and try and force that rod back down. And when it's 10 degrees out, that's the last thing you want to be trying to screw around with. So you're better off probably running and shutting your water off, and then trying to readjust that valve. It's real simple. This is so cheap. These tanks, I know they're less than $10 a piece. If you buy yourself a good head, these good heads, they got a self-igniter on them. You open it up, push the button, there you go. All you do is come to your valve. This one's not frozen, but just for a couple of minutes, right around it, boom, pops right open, instead of forcing it. So anyway, that's what I do. I just keep this thing handy. It's sitting by the hydrant in the barn. The one hydrant that I use, I just keep it sitting there. It works out really good. So anyways, just a little tip. Don't force your valve up. You can pull your rod out of alignment. You'll know it's out of alignment because water will still be coming out when you shut it off. Or if your valve isn't draining all the way at the bottom, you'll know it when it gets cold because you'll come out here to water and your pipe is frozen. Then you're done till spring. Disconnect your hose. I mean, just something really simple. Because sometimes you'll leave that hose on, you'll go to try and undo it, it won't come off. You got to get a pair of pliers to get it off. And here again, I've done this myself. We've all done it. What you can do then, if you do that, you'll leave it on. You're going to have water all right here. This whole thing's going to be full of water. Here again, just take your torch and just heat it up, drain the water, because there's only going to be water sitting right here. If your pipe is draining properly, there won't be any water in there. There's going to be water right here because it was sitting in the tip of the hose. So now you can just take your pipe, you could just take your torch, heat it up, your water comes out, turn your water on, you're good to go. That's why obviously you see mine just disconnected, it's just hanging here now. And that hose is done now till spring. I don't bring them in and try and warm them up. I just carry buckets. And the nice thing about carrying buckets when it's really cold out is it warms you up. So anyways, just a little tip. Get yourself a cheap little propane tank. Don't force your valve up. You'll pull your rod out of alignment. Then you're going to have all kinds of issues. When it's 10 degrees out, that's the last thing you want to be dealing with. You want to make sure you've got water for your animals all the time. So anyways, that's it. Just a little tip. Get yourself a cheap little tank. You know, keep your valve disconnected. Just don't force that rod up. Like I said, you'll know if you do because you're going to shut this off and water will be coming out. So anyways, hey, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Hit that subscribe button. Help support the channel. I really, really appreciate it. Next to that subscribe button is that little bell. If you click that little bell, you will get notified every time one of these videos comes out. Thumbs up are always appreciated. Thumbs up, always appreciated. Any questions, comments, please leave them. I will try to answer them as fast as I can, the best I can. Here again, these situations, ask me how I know, right? You live and learn. So anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon. All right, bye.